The relationship between economic security and physical health is one of the most important and unexplored areas in medicine today. Dr. Tiffany Younger is a clinical scientist and postdoctoral fellow at Yale Medical School, doing pioneering work at exactly that intersection.
Her research focuses in particular on Black women in America, looking at how wealth, stress, and health outcomes connect and what interventions could actually make a difference. So, Dr. Younger, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
The topic of Black women, very much in the news and in the public discourse, concern about Black women in the United States of America. And this is your research. Tell us, shouldn't be concerned.
We absolutely should be concerned. What we see right now is what I want to say like a structural attack on Black women in jobs, Black women being able to take care of their families, and Black women being able to build wealth. So we should absolutely be concerned as a nation.
And when you say building wealth, what are you looking at? I know we know that you have so many degrees, so you're looking at it from an analytical data perspective, not just, oh, this looks bad. It's that you're seeing the numbers.
Right now, Black women, well, let's start off with like 70% of Black women are sole or primary breadwinners of their household. So that means even when Black men or a spouse is there, Black women are 70% more likely to be the sole primary breadwinner. That impacts children, first of all, right? That impacts our community. The second thing is that Black women, when it comes to wealth, pennies on the dollar. Pennies on the dollar compared to white men, compared to even white women in some cases. And so when we think about wealth, we think about assets, we think about debt, we think about assets that contribute to your health. And debt, that doesn't take you out.
Right. And that is, I had in the women's rights field that I spent so much time in. Whenever the equal pay day comes around, it drives me crazy. I kept saying, will you please stop? It hasn't changed, even by a penny, in year after year of calculating what a Black woman or a Latina woman or an Asian woman earns compared to a white man is what the standard, is of calculating income and wealth.
I'm happy that you said that. I don't like measuring gaps. I understand the importance of it. A lot of my colleagues and economists I respect greatly, they measure gaps because that's what we need to do in order to get the data out. But to your point, I'm interested in knowing what Black women want. That might not be what white men have.
Wow. Now there's a powerful. Please go on, Dr. Young.
Yeah, well, because this really started because of my research, and my research was really just asking Black women initially, like, what is wealth? It was supposed to be a quantitative data, which means that I was supposed to just get a survey, get the numbers. And what I ran into was they would ask me, what do you mean by wealth? And as a researcher and a scientist, that's problematic for me because if we are not having the same definitions of wealth as the measurements, it becomes extremely concerning because what are we quantifying if we are not aspiring for the thing that the economists are actually like quantifying, right? So when I think about wealth, the wealth data oftentimes talks about home ownership. The wealth data often talks about entrepreneurship, stocks. Black women don't even play in the stock market the same way. And so those are like the top measurements that from my research, I've seen Black women not participate in.
Yeah,
Mm.
David, we let you into the conversation here. I think it's that definition of what are we talking about? What do we want?
That statement is just echoing in my head. I've really fascinated by the work that you do, and even more so the approach you take. You're not pathologizing the people you're studying. You involve them as partners, not subjects. And that's a really different way of doing science. And I was curious if you talk a little bit more about what does participatory research look like in your practice, and what do you think others can learn from it to kind of reveal more truths or information?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question, David, because it's absolutely not subject based, right? So I love that you pointed that out. We don't see our participants as subjects, but as co-collaborators. As like, I cannot do my job if they do not participate. Because I understand my job is based off of researching with Black women, children with families, they are important. And I think that sometimes we take funders being the number one priority and not the actual people that we're engaging with research. And so I've had to learn how to shift the paradigm a little bit and like center the families, the Black women, even their children, right? Because oftentimes they're getting on the screen in focus groups, and they are with their kids in the back.
Ah,
Right. And even when we pay them $100, 150, they still don't have the capacity to stop and engage in a way that science would save me. Right.
yeah.
So as a scientist, I'm like, I want to study people in their environment. I don't want to subject them to my environment, which is control.
Mm. I mean, you said it. I would like to just delve in a little bit more. I mean, you teach at Columbia, at Hunter, at Penn. You have a daughter, and which all of this, as I understand it, means you're doing this work from inside the communities you're studying. And I'm just curious how that shapes your sense of urgency, and honestly, kind of what keeps you going. I mean, this is some hard study. This is some hard information, some hard systems that you're delving into. How does that shape your work, and how do you keep it? How do you keep yourself motivated and going?
Yeah. Thank you, Debbie. You did your research. And the biggest role I had was being a postdoc at Yale School of Medicine, which is like my full-time gig. And so I'm happy that you mentioned my teaching. Right? No, because I tell folks all the time, it is my commitment to train the next cohort, the next generation of researchers, of social workers, of practitioners. Like that is my job. Right. So even outside of the research, it is being committed to making sure that students understand the playing field a little bit. And so to answer your question, I think about to whom much is given, much is required. And we are in a tough time right now, right? It is so easy for me to go lay down and just be like, forget it. But I think
Mm.
about my grandmother, who was a Black woman who raised grandchildren after her children died. She could have said, forget it. Right. She took 6 kids in after her 2 daughters died. Me being one of them.
And you write about your life. You were uh, a child of a disrupted family, and you went through. I don't know whether it's defined as child poverty, but as talk to us about that.
Yeah. And I tell people all the time, I my research, my work comes from what I've experienced, and that's the first thing I come from. Everybody look at the fancy degrees. I was like, I don't say the same thing I was saying since I was little. Like, why I got figured out? Yummy, like same thing, just with fancy words, right? So, when I was 3 years old, my biological mother died, and she was 32 from a chronic illness, she had kidney issues, and I didn't, I think that subconsciously was what drove me. Um, Her and my dad were married. My dad ended up leaving. He got addicted to drugs. He actually recently passed during COVID-19 from CPOD, and then he also contracted COVID. So he died. So I have 2 parents who have died, and me and my siblings, I have 2 older siblings. Now I think about where I am today. And I think people always talk about how smart I am. And I'm like, smartness is one factor, but if you don't have open doors, there's nowhere you can go. And so at an early age, I attracted a lot of mentors, right? Lawyers. I thought I wanted to be an attorney at one point. I thought, and so, 2 lawyers from Columbia University, which one ended up adopting me, my mom. She was a young Black woman in Harlem, and she was introduced to me. And she always says, I just fell in love with you because I only had boys. So she has 3 sons that she adopted you. And she took me and adopted me. She has been instrumental in my life. She doesn't play about me. I think so, I didn't come out of you, right? I was having my baby. We swore I came out of her. But very important that I think about those assets because there are young people back home where I'm from who were just as smart as me. I can name a few, if not smarter, who did well, who are still where they are. And I question, was it only hard work? Was it only intellect? You can't run on a treadmill and go anywhere if it's not moving. You have to have an
Mm.
open door. And so that is my commitment, and that's why I continue to do it.
Wow.
So, talk to us about how Black women do define wealth. You found a difference.
Yeah, and interestingly, I tell people all the time, we still want our money, right? Like We still are owed recreations and we still want to be paid a living wage. But interestingly, what I found is that they define wealth as wellness, which is people always think money equals wellness. But after I did my research, I have had high paying earned women in some of my studies. I had women with wealth who said some of this income is toxic.
Right.
Like I'm working at a corporate America, they driving me crazy. I'd rather just work at home and make $40,000. So they are talking about that their wealth has to contribute to their wealth. It shouldn't deplete it.
Hmm.
One other thing is agency. That's about choice. And when people say, well, wealth will equal that, again, not with structural racism, not with anti-gender, Black or racism. It doesn't equal choice. So even if you have high earning people, big assets, their choices are limited. They see it as community.
Wealth as community.
Wealth as like their community is healthy and well. Like most of them always talk about the neighbors, the family. It's never oftentimes only about them. They want to see people around them in their communities doing well. And so those are just some of the 3 top ones. And my research is really trying to dig in to say, well, what does that look like? Because I'm like, well, what would wellness look like? What would community look like? Because that's where I can come in and propose policy solutions.
Right. Well, Black maternal health would be one issue. And
Yes.
the death rates from every conceivable disease that are so much higher in our category than anywhere else.
One of my degrees is clinical epidemiology. And I remember during COVID-19, I was in what we call a T32 training program. And I worked with all physicians. So it's like me and like 17 physicians. They got called to the front line. And what I saw happen, because what we don't understand is that we contract chronic illnesses at such high rates. And what we focus on is food and diet. So we're trying to control behaviors. Like if you just eat better.
Right.
If you just work out.
Right.
I have no skinny, healthy women who have heart disease, who are Black women, who have all the education in the world. So is it true? What is actually happening to us? It's about weathering. It is the wear and tear of the stress on our bodies and our minds.
Right. So weathering is the term that accounts for Black women dying earlier, being more susceptible to all kinds of diseases. It's the stress of racism and
Sexism.
Mm-hmm.
All the isms, right? Because if you think about folks within the LGBTQ community who also identify with being Black and also identify with being women, trans Black women, we think about class and you poor. Tupac said that, right? And you poor. Like, like all of that and you poor. And so all of those isms together. And I think people are always like, but like, how does it work? And I'm like, it's simple as I go into work and oftentimes people don't know that they're doing it, but the things that you expect of me as a Black are to take care of you and your feelings. Right. I'm like, my job is to do my job. And then I wonder, why didn't you go to Carter and ask him to do that? Why is it that you always feel comfortable with me taking care of their feelings? It's like this expectation. I don't want to seem harsh, but I want to think about if I have to carry the emotional load on top of the mental load at work, on top of all the other loads, there will be a wear and tear on my body, on our bodies, right? On our organs, on our, thinking about it. You go home and you think about it. I wake up in the morning when I used to work inside of nonprofit, I used to receive all of these emails about people not coming in, but they would be like such vivid, sad stories. And that's how I have to start my morning. Now, credit to them is that we don't have a system where you just say, I can't come in today. You got to give a long excuse. I would read these long excuses. And is your mom okay? Is the dog okay? That's what I was carrying before I went in.
You founded a project called Liberation for Us. And I think it's just a striking name for a research project. It really jumped out at me. I looked at kind of what you do, and I think liberation as a scientific framework is really interesting. And I was curious, why did you name it that way? It sort of speaks to what you're just talking about, but why does it matter how we name this kind of work?
Yeah, Liberation for Us is definitely a space where I collaborate with outside organizations to think of our research in a different way. I think I use my institutional knowledge at Yale to say, okay, let me help y'all and think about this. And to be quite frank, to also credit their research when it's community-based. We don't like to give community-based research credit in the way that we like to give other scientific research. And I mean deliberation for us because I'm like, when I'm talking about Black women, I'm talking about every single human being in this country. And if we are not free, you are not free. And if you understand the history of our country, they come for one, they come for all. Before we were even on this nation, poor white people were working and not making money. And then we went and got slaves, right? So like we are all attached. And so when I say liberation for us, it's that it's not only for Black women, it's that we start with Black women because we have the least amount of power, the least amount of capital, the least amount of everything. And when we can figure out what they need, we would all benefit from it because we'll get it. We'll get it. It's not just for them, it's for all of us.
So that's a part of the work that you're doing is looking for the answers that they have. If we, as a group, Black women, have the least of everything in this country, how do we begin? And caring for our children who also are a part of this system. What are the answers for that? What are you seeing?
I'm a policy person at heart, right? And so my solutions are not behavioral solutions. You can't behave your way out of this structure or out of this economy. And it's a design economy is not natural. When we talk about like the economy, as it functions on its own, right? So one of the solutions is one of the first projects I'm working on is baby bonds, is making sure that young people are born with some sort of wealth, that every child, hopefully in this country, can get access to starting their life in a surplus, right? The number one we always talk about is guaranteed income. We have some women on our studies who get baby bonds and guaranteed income. And the way that they are so joyful, right? And so those are the two that I always like to start with. I want to move to a guaranteed housing program. I don't want nobody to think about rent or mortgage. Like that's my North Star. Like, how do I get to guaranteed housing? Like what city, what state wants to start that? Those are like the top three.
I don't know. Sounds like a pretty good list, David.
When you think about kind of wealth, I think we're assuming something, but talk about the interaction between wealth and health. Just, baby bonds, housing, the things you're mentioning. It's not just like a good economic thing to have, but it really ties into your work at all the institutions that you affect, some of the most important educational institutions in our country. I think that connection, maybe tease it out just a little bit. It's not just about having a baby bond. What does it actually mean from a health impact perspective?
Interesting enough, I think about the connection between wealth and health, that it's not so Black and white as we think, particularly when it comes to Black women. It's very nuanced. Actually, we do not see one of the studies called a diminished return, which means that our wealth does not actually end up being health in some cases. So an example is that you own a home and the mortgage is so high that it stresses you out. Dr. Amy Baker Pastor at Penn, she actually published a study about that more house than money, right? But you have the asset. The other thing, to your point, David, is this idea of debt and the different types of debt. I think about we talk about good debt. You have to have a psychological understanding of not being impoverished for you to think debt is good. So even in some cases when we're like, this is good debt, or this will get you to there, you psychologically have to understand that. And so this is the biocycle connection, right? This is a biopsychosocial, that if you don't understand it to be that case, or if for you it's not that case, it will not manifest into any type of health outcome. So if I think that the house is going to drain me and stress me, my stress levels can raise and then hypertension comes. Now I'm paying Big Pharma for the pill. Now I could get a heart disease. Like it's like these things, these insidious ways that we're not thinking.
So talk to us, Dr. Younger, as we close out. We all have to come back.
Yes.
This year. Fascinating research and work. Where are we? You said when we started at a critical time, but do you see us getting out of this? How do we move through this?
I think we have to wait them out. This is a mind game. And I think when I talk to Black women who are my colleagues, we talk about you gotta get your mind right. This is a mind game. This is a historical repetition. Like this is history. I tell people all the time, if you study history, you know it can come. I think what's happening right now, we see the country split in, right? And for the most part, I think about control your controllables. So when I'm working with collaborators, when I'm working with policy advocates, I'm thinking about what are some of the low-hanging fruit that we can start. First of all, we need to be voting. Second of all, we need to look at our local levels. I'm in New York City. Mandani's here. I'm so happy. Right? We need to be thinking about local levels. You need to be walking inside of your representative's office. They have money there. Their job is to actually insult those low-hanging fruits. I think people think so big all the time. Federal government, yes, we're pushing for that. But start at home. Go ask your representative for what you need. It's your city council member, right? The borough president, right? And when we start to do that, then you start to see the change. Politicians are the only people who get paid to do nothing sometimes.
Now, here's the statement. There is the statement, Dr. Younger. Thank you so much for being with us. Starting local, that David adheres to himself. Very local. He's nodding his head. He knows that he gets it. We all get it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Spending time with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for being with us. Be sure to check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
You can also find more information about our guests, and we have show notes and all of that, and about the podcast and the other events and volunteering that we're doing on our website, theinvisibleamericans.com. Thanks for being with us today. We will see you the next time.